She regrets losing you the moment you go silent. There's no bang. No big final fight, just silence. That kind of silence that walks in slowly. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. You don't block her, you don't text, you don't chase. You vanish in full view of her screen, and that's when the story really begins. Not for you, but for her. Because for the first time, she's not being screamed at, she's not being begged, she's not being chased like the dozens of guys before. No, you're different. You loved with everything you had, you gave, you forgave, you waited. And when it was time to let go, you didn't announce it, you just disappeared into peace. See, there's something she never expected from you. Detachment, real, quiet, masculine detachment. It doesn't come with rage, it doesn't come with revenge, it just comes, and once it does, it never turns back. And while she laughs with someone else, scrolls her feed, or flirts in the places you once stood, she begins to notice the space. The silence, and that silence begins to echo, because when a man who truly cared goes quiet, it's not absence. It's a mirror, and suddenly she's forced to see herself. Every selfish moment, every lie she told you with a calm face. Every time you said, "I'm okay," when you weren't and she didn't care. She thought you'd be there forever. She thought you'd always respond. She thought she could disrespect you and still keep your soul in her pocket until you didn't. And that's when it hits her. Not with drama, not with noise, but with the most terrifying thing a woman can ever feel. A man's silence after he loved her deeply, now she regrets it. But the moment she realizes what she lost is the same moment you realize you finally found yourself, the invisible pain of a man who loved fully. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't scream, it doesn't cry out, it doesn't punch walls or drown in whiskey bottles, it simply endures. Silently, that's the kind of pain you carried, not because you were weak, but because you were trying to be strong for her, for the relationship, for yourself. You swallowed every sarcastic comment, you forgave the forgotten texts. You let the cold shoulder pass as mood swings. You made excuses for her disrespect because you loved her more than your own dignity. You said she's just tired. When she was indifferent, you said maybe I'm being too sensitive. When she mocked your vulnerability, you said she'll come back, even when she was already gone in spirit, and for the longest time you stayed because your heart hadn't caught up with your reality. You see, men like you, the ones who give fully, don't break easily. You bend, you stretch, you contort your boundaries, your time, your energy, just to keep someone else from falling apart. Until one day you finally realize it's you who's been falling and she's not reaching for your hand anymore. She's just watching you crumble like a bystander watching a slow-motion car crash. That's when the silence begins to grow in your chest, that numbness, that sick feeling that she's not who you thought she was, not the girl you opened up to, not the woman you made future plans with, not the partner you fought to protect. No, she changed, or maybe you finally saw the truth, and that truth burns. Because here's what most people don't talk about. When a man loves deeply and gets hurt, it's not just heartbreak, it's a full identity crisis. You question your worth, you question your instincts, you ask yourself, was it all fake? Was I that blind? Am I even enough? You look in the mirror and suddenly the man staring back doesn't feel like a man anymore. He feels used, discarded, forgotten. Not because you were too emotional, not because you were too intense, but because you cared in a world that rewards detachment and the cruel irony. She never even said goodbye, no closure, no explanation, just distance. and that distance whispered louder than any argument ever could. You were just an option. It kills something inside a man when he gives everything and is met with shrugs, delays, indifference. He doesn't erupt, he implodes, he smiles in public, but his eyes look distant. He says, "I'm good," but can't sleep at night. He tries to distract himself, but she's there in every quiet moment, in every memory-triggering song, in every flashback of the life he thought they were building together. But here's what separates you from the others. You didn't become bitter. You didn't become vengeful. You became silent, and in that silence was pain. Yes, but also something more powerful, the beginning of rebirth. Because real transformation doesn't start with rage. It starts with stillness. The kind of stillness that lets you hear the lies you were ignoring. The kind of stillness that makes you say, "I'm done saving someone who was fine watching me drown." You see, the pain of heartbreak isn't just about love lost. It's about the betrayal of your belief in someone. It's about being vulnerable with a person who turned your soul into their sandbox and walked away like nothing happened. But that's where this story begins to turn, because while she's off chasing chaos, while she's posting curated happiness, while she's pretending you were just a chapter, you're beginning a new volume written in silence. Ink made of pain, bound with discipline. And it starts with this realization. She didn't break you. She just revealed where you were unfinished. Absolutely. Now we move into the next emotional turn. Section 3. Her perspective shift word count target. Approximately 800 to 1,200 words. Tone. Poetic, introspective, slow-burning regret through her internal dialogue. The day your silence became louder than her words. It doesn't hit her at first. The first few days after you go quiet, she feels nothing. Maybe even a sense of relief. Freedom, like she just slipped off a heavy coat in summer heat. You were too much, too emotional, too available, too constant, so she scrolls her phone, drowns in her distractions, lets the you fade out into static. She posts, she parties, she replies to guys she used to ignore. She convinces herself she's okay, maybe even better off. But then comes the stillness. Not yours, hers, that eerie silence where you're no longer reacting. No angry messages, no desperate calls, no "I miss you" texts at 2 a.m. And that's when something starts to itch, because your silence isn't just silence, it's peace. And peace to a woman who once held your chaos feels unfamiliar. Threatening even. At first she assumes you're just playing games. She tells herself, "He'll come back, he always does, he can't stay away from me for long," but the days roll on, then weeks, and there's nothing. Not even a scene on her stories, and suddenly she starts to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. Panic, because silence, real silence, only comes from men who have moved on. She starts replaying the conversations, the ones where you cried, the ones where your voice cracked and she rolled her eyes, the ones where you tried to explain how she was hurting you and she dismissed you like a child throwing a tantrum. Now those words echo differently. She remembers how you used to overthink every word she said. Now you don't say a word. How you used to explain yourself endlessly. Now you give nothing. How you used to check in every morning. Now she's greeted by emptiness. She checks your socials, nothing. Checks your friends' stories, still nothing. No posts, no subtext, no breadcrumbs, and that's when the regret sets in. Not loud, not dramatic, but like a cold breath crawling up her spine, because she realizes something terrifying. You're not playing silent, you are silent, and it's real. She sees your absence now not as a punishment, but as a statement. A man who begged is now a man who vanished. A man who chased is now walking silently in another direction. A man who would have given his world has taken it back. And it dawns on her. You didn't block her out of pettiness, you didn't ghost her out of anger, you simply let her go. That's what she never expected, because deep down she believed your love was her safety net. Her backup plan, her trophy on the shelf, always there collecting dust but never leaving, until one day the shelf was empty and for the first time she couldn't reach you. She hears your silence now in everything. In songs that used to be yours, in old photos she can't delete, in the way no one else texts with your consistency, no one listens with your patience, no one holds space the way you did. She starts to miss the you she ignored, and that regret, it doesn't scream, it whispers. You really lost him, he's not waiting anymore. You thought he'd always be yours, and now he belongs to himself. And that is a type of pain no closure can soften, because when a woman realizes that a man who truly loved her has become silent, it forces her to confront the one thing she always avoided. She was never ready for the love she asked for, and now that it's gone, she finally understands what it meant. But by then it's too late, because your silence has become a wall she cannot climb. Excellent. Now we enter the turning point, the rise. This is section 4, the silent comeback word count target, approximately 1,500 to 2,500 words. Tone, powerful, cinematic, poetic, and emotionally intelligent rom. Heartbreak to mastery, the man she never thought you'd become. She stopped hearing from you, but that wasn't the real loss. The real loss was that you stopped needing her, and that was the day your life began again. Because while she was replaying old arguments, refreshing her notifications, and wondering why your silence felt heavier than your presence ever did, you were evolving. Not loudly, not dramatically, not for revenge, but because you finally understood something you should have known from the start. Her absence is not your punishment, it's your permission. You started walking differently, not with swagger, with direction, no longer waiting to be chosen, no longer begging to be understood. You became a man who stopped explaining himself because you finally understood yourself. The world around you didn't change. You changed. The gym became your sanctuary. The silence became your therapy. Your mornings became sacred, no longer filled with checking your phone to see if she replied. Now you check in with yourself, and the most powerful part? No one sees the storm that birthed this version of you. All they see is a man who's calm, collected, grounded, but inside you there was war. There were nights you wanted to call her, days you nearly sent paragraphs you'd later delete. Moments you had to fight the urge to remind her of all you gave. But you didn't. You sat with it, you let it burn, and from that fire you forged a new standard. You stopped chasing the woman who treated your love like it was disposable and started becoming the man who would never again tolerate crumbs. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, you learned that healing isn't loud. It's quiet, consistent, and disciplined. It's found in the little decisions no one applauds. Waking up early to move your body, saying no to things that drain you. Reading books instead of chasing validation, drinking water instead of texting back. Praying, meditating, lifting, creating. This is the silent comeback. The one that doesn't announce itself. The one that doesn't need to prove anything because real power is not in showing her what she lost. It's in becoming so centered, so grounded that you no longer care. And here's the part she never saw coming. You're not angry anymore. That's the twist no one expects, because men are told they only heal through rage or revenge, but the most dangerous man, the most evolved man, heals through peace. You stop needing closure. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop measuring your worth through her recognition. Instead, you begin asking better questions. What kind of man do I want to be even when no one's watching? Who am I without her eyes on me? What if peace was the flex I never knew I needed? You begin to study the art of emotional intelligence. You realize that your silence is not avoidance, it's presence. Not silence to hurt her, not silence to punish. Silence to return to yourself. The Stoics said it best. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. And you start to understand how much of your pain was holding on to someone who had already let go. You used to say, I can't live without her. Now you say, I finally remember how to live with myself. Your phone still buzzes sometimes. Her name may flash across the screen someday. Maybe she sends a just thinking about you text or drops a like on an old photo. But the difference now, you don't flinch. You don't romanticize the past. You remember the disrespect, the dismissiveness. The nights you were begging for love in a relationship that felt like a courtroom, and you no longer apologize for the man you've become because the man she left behind is dead. In his place stands someone colder, not in heart, but in discipline. Someone who walks away without saying a word. Someone who knows that detachment isn't bitterness, it's wisdom. She lost a man who once loved loudly. Now she watches a man who thrives quietly, fighting harder, proving yourself more. Showing her again and again that you were willing to weather any storm just to stay by her side. But somewhere along the line, that belief began to crack. Not from a place of cynicism, but of clarity, because real men don't beg for what's slipping away. Real men don't compete with delusion. Real men don't chase people committed to misunderstanding them. They detach not as a tactic, not to manipulate, but because they finally realize that some things are not worth bleeding for. You used to love her loudly. Now you love yourself quietly, and that shift, that's where your power came from. There's a lie we're sold as men that we must win her back. Prove her wrong, shine so brightly that she regrets losing us, but you've outgrown that illusion. You've stopped trying to be the man she misses and started becoming the man you respect. That's the difference, because now you don't detach out of spite. You detach out of strength. Detachment isn't numbness, it's not apathy, it's not weakness, it's choosing to walk away from what doesn't value you and never looking back. It's waking up and realizing she doesn't deserve front row seats to my growth story. It's letting her go, not because you've given up on love, but because you finally know what real love feels like, and that wasn't it. And what happens when you detach? You become dangerous, not violent, not aggressive, but unchaseable. You're no longer available to people who want you only when it's convenient. You're no longer hooked on her inconsistency, her mixed signals, her breadcrumbs of affection. You start attracting peace. You stop performing, you start leading. Your energy becomes rare because you're no longer broadcasting your pain to be validated. You're channeling it into something real. Detachment doesn't mean you never cared. It means you cared deeply, but not at the cost of your dignity. It means you showed up fully until it became clear that staying meant abandoning yourself. You let her talk down to you. You excused her mood swings. You tolerated her cold silences, the games, the passive-aggressive punishments, and still you gave her love. But now you give yourself love. You don't chase anymore because you finally understand. If love must be earned through pain, it's not love. If attention comes only after silence, it's not interest, it's guilt. If she only reaches out when she feels you slipping away, she never held you. She held the control. Let her go. Let her sit with what she chose. Let her feel the emptiness she created. Let her watch you rise not with bitterness but with indifference, because the most powerful response is not anger. It's no response at all. You're not emotionally unavailable. You're emotionally disciplined. You don't give access to those who abuse it. You don't open your heart to those who treat it like a toy. You know now. Love is not earned through suffering. Respect is not negotiable. Time is not infinite. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. And here's what most men don't realize until it's too late. The one who detaches first wins not in a petty, childish way, but in the way that says, I know my value, I know what I bring, and I will never again bleed for someone who wouldn't bandage a wound for me. She may come back. They always do when they feel your energy has disappeared completely. Not when you're still bitter, not when you're still angry, posting stories or throwing shade online, no. They come back when you're calm. When you're glowing in silence, when you become everything they mocked you for trying to be. And by then, you're gone. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, you're in a different chapter. Reading a different book, speaking a different language. She can't reach you anymore. This is the reward for detachment. You become unreachable to chaos. You stop confusing comfort with love. You stop interpreting mixed signals as a mystery you need to solve. You stop treating her silence like a cliffhanger and start treating it like a full stop, because you've changed. And once a man changes silently, he never goes back to noise. Detachment doesn't make you a bad man. It makes you a man no longer willing to bleed to prove his love. You don't burn bridges, you just build walls with better materials, boundaries, self-respect, purpose. And the higher you climb, the harder it is for people like her to even see you, let alone reach you. Absolutely, now we arrive at the emotional and psychological peak. You used to think love meant holding on, fighting harder, proving yourself more. Showing her again and again that you were willing to weather any storm just to stay by her side. But somewhere along the line, that belief began to crack. Not from a place of cynicism, but of clarity, because real men don't beg for what's slipping away. Real men don't compete with delusion. Real men don't chase people committed to misunderstanding them. They detach. Not as a tactic, not to manipulate, but because they finally realize that some things are not worth bleeding for. You used to love her loudly. Now you love yourself quietly, and that shift? That's where your power came from. There's a lie we're sold as men that we must win her back, prove her wrong. Shine so brightly that she regrets losing us, but you've outgrown that illusion. You've stopped trying to be the man she misses and started becoming the man you respect. That's the difference. If love must be earned through pain, it's not love. If attention comes only after silence, it's not interest, it's guilt. If she only reaches out when she feels you slipping away, she never held you. She held the control. Let her go. Let her sit with what she chose. Let her feel the emptiness she created. Let her watch you rise not with bitterness but with indifference, because the most powerful response is not anger. It's no response at all. You're not emotionally unavailable. You're emotionally disciplined. You don't give access to those who abuse it. You don't open your heart to those who treat it like a toy. You know now. Love is not earned through suffering. Respect is not negotiable. Time is not infinite. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. And here's what most men don't realize until it's too late. The one who detaches first wins, not in a petty, childish way, but in the way that says, I know my value, I know what I bring, and I will never again bleed for someone who wouldn't bandage a wound for me. She may come back. They always do when they feel your energy has disappeared completely. Not when you're still bitter, not when you're still angry, posting stories or throwing shade online. No, they come back when you're calm, when you're glowing in silence, when you become everything they mocked you for trying to be. And by then you're gone, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. You're in a different chapter, reading a different book. Speaking a different language. She can't reach you anymore. You become unreachable to chaos. You stop confusing comfort with love. You stop interpreting mixed signals as a mystery you need to solve. You stop treating her silence like a cliffhanger and start treating it like a full stop, because you've changed. And once a man changes silently, he never goes back to noise. Detachment doesn't make you a bad man. It makes you a man no longer willing to bleed to prove his love. You don't burn bridges, you just build walls with better materials, boundaries, self-respect, purpose. And the higher you climb, the harder it is for people like her to even see you, let alone reach you. In the final section, we'll deliver a calm, emotionally satisfying message directly to the viewer. It will reaffirm his worth, his evolution, and leave him with strength, not anger. A masculine goodbye to everything that no longer deserves him. Would you like me to continue to the closing message? Absolutely. Let's bring this cinematic journey home with the final reflection where emotion meets resolution. Take a breath, not just because you've made it to the end of this story, but because you're not the same man who started it. You've lived the ache, you've endured the silence. You've walked through the emotional fire that most men never recover from. And yet here you are, still standing, still healing, still evolving, but not for her. Not to win anyone back. Not to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it the first time. You're doing this for you. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom wrapped in restraint. You stopped trying to rewrite the story in her mind. You stopped needing to be the villain she repented or the hero she regretted leaving. You don't need her regret. You need your rebirth, and that rebirth only happens when you let go. Not just of her, but of the part of you that needed her to complete you. You don't need validation from the woman who couldn't see your soul. You don't need closure from the person who left the door open just wide enough to confuse you. You only need one thing, a man you can be proud of when you look in the mirror, even when no one's watching. That's where the real power lives. Not in followers, not in revenge, not in flexing your glow up to an audience that never really cared. The real power lives in peace. So to the man watching this who feels like no one gets it, who still replays old memories at 2 a.m., who questions if he should have fought harder or walked away sooner, let this be your confirmation. She regrets losing you the moment you go silent, but by then it doesn't matter, because you've found something deeper than her attention. You've found your voice in the silence. You've found your strength in the heartbreak. You've found your identity in the letting go. Maybe she'll come back, maybe she won't. But you're not waiting, you're building, you're ascending. You're walking into a future where your peace is no longer negotiable and your worth is no longer outsourced. This is your final lesson. You are the closure, you are the healing, you are the peace you once begged someone else to give you. Let her regret what she lost. You respect what you found. Now close your eyes, take another breath, and remind yourself you didn't lose her. You found you, and that was the real victory all along.